Mm. Gustavo, we
We're
just had,
live.
yes, we're live. We just had
Yeah,
our little ranting check-in. Now,
yeah.
back to business.
Back to business.
Accountability call number two.
Yeah,
What are
we made
your,
it.
yes, what are your intentions from this call?
I don't know. I want to see how you're doing. I want to reflect on my journey as well, and also like think about what would a next experiment look like. So the
Mm.
other day, I decided to share one of my chapters, very draft shape, with the world and see what happened. So
Yeah.
now I say, well, if I did that, then now what comes next?
Yeah, and I would love to hear more about that because if this was a very rough first draft, I definitely am an imposter.
Why?
Uh, because I read it and I think it's great. There's lots of juice in it already, and there were some sentences I was like, "Ooh, that's a Twitter sentence right there, quotable." Um, yeah,
One chapter is easy, and I only have four written, and the introduction. So
and I have the impression that for most books, there's this one chapter that is really pivotal. So one chapter that has the core idea and everything to it is leading towards, and then it's about implementation and seeing
uh,
um, the different facets of this core idea. So yeah.
are you
Um,
asking me if this is? I don't know.
no,
It
it's just
resonated more than I expected, but to be honest, let me. You asked me what happened and what triggered this. Like two things. On one hand, I was okay. I need to. What's my article of the week? And I was working with clients and blah blah blah. And then it felt, well, maybe I published something that I already written, but then the task ended being more complicated because I had to rewrite it. So it wasn't writing. If I've written a new article from scratch, it would have been an easier task,
oh,
right?
really? Why
Yeah,
that? Why that?
for two reasons. First, like whatever I shared, even if it was a draft, I want to make sure that it made sense. I want to make sure not that it was good, but people could get what it's all about, even though the chapter doesn't necessarily. People got hooked with the idea of conversational depth, but they don't know what's the solution, right?
Mhm.
So, and that's the surprise, and I haven't teased that.
Which is a
But
great
most importantly,
marketing trick.
I didn't do it with that purpose, but it helps. Hey, welcome. I'll take it. But I had the what I call part two of or part one of section one ready, and this is chapter three. So there are four chapters, and then I've been dancing around back and forth, exploring what the second part is going to look like.
Mm.
Because models, I was trying to combine the piece, blah blah blah, and sometimes you just need to write. So the moment I share this, it was like a liberating experience. And then I went to bed because I published it in advance, right? And then that night I woke up at some point and I started writing stuff, then go went to it, and then now I have the part two like perfect. Not struck the how it's gonna work. I need to write it, of course,
Yeah.
but it's like I was
Oh.
working on an outline, right?
Hmm.
The chapter, and basically I said, no, what are the key themes? And now I came up with three big themes that make sense, and all the other pieces are gonna fall. So it was, oh, great. So deliberation, when you to your point, sometimes we're afraid of doing something,
Hmm.
or is it gonna be good, whatever, like overthink, whatever the process
Hmm.
is. And when we remove that, then that stops being a problem. So when you remove one problem, then the other problems stop being a problem too.
So
Does it make sense?
I think so, and I wonder because I'm in the similar stage now. So I think I have concluded part one of my book, which is the entire introduction. What is the
Uh-huh.
problem of professionalism? Um,
Okay.
and And I'm now exactly at this point, and I'm like, now what? There are a million directions in which I could go. So obviously, it's the the liberation of the pioneer, of the unprofessional pioneer. But then even there are so many different directions I could go. So now I wonder, maybe I need to make more the core idea more public. Um, and then I wonder what
Mhm.
it is that helped you to then find clarity. Was it just the relief that, okay, this is now kind of set in stone, and now you can go on? Or what was it?
Um, it's set in bytes more than so I can change because it's
Set
not
in
there.
sand, set in
No,
mud.
what I'm saying is it's not that I have the manuscript of part one. No, it's like I have something there
Hmm.
that I'm going to revisit. But I think in unintentionally, when you let go of something, so it's not that I was stuck in part one, so I didn't move into the other one. I was trying to solve something and they're part, but now that you launch it, it feels like you gain some, I don't know, confidence, but also like it's like if you're writing a three series whatever and you launched one, you need to make sure the other one is ready because people are
Hmm.
saying, hey, what comes next? So it kind of, but I think that my mind liberated like without me looking for that, and that helped me put all the other stuff in pieces, like
Nice.
the best
Good.
writing happens when you're not in front of a computer. Right?
And it's interesting that you're saying that because this time I prepared for our call. So I wrote down, okay, so what did I learn? What has happened? And one of my learnings was that I am most productive when I'm with my iPad in a cafe or at the beach, somewhere where there is just enough distraction and movement and where I don't have my laptop. And I wonder whether it is because I'm more restricted. So on the iPad, I cannot write as quickly
Mhm.
and I don't switch to other tabs so quickly because with the iPad to open another thing, it's always kind of
Yeah.
complicated. And I have the impression that when I work on my laptop, then it's, oh, let me look this up. Or maybe there's an article about that. Oh, what have other people said about this? So I'm constantly going outside and want to double check. And with the iPad, I'm just like, oh, let me draft that. It almost feels like journaling.
Hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my big learning.
Maybe going back to the maybe it's less professional, you know what I mean? The professional stereotype, you need to be in a computer hard writing hours nonstop, no that
Yeah.
counts. And that puts a lot of pressure, but then you do it your way and
Yeah. And I think the little distractions really helped me to be in a kind of focus zone because if I'm just in front of my computer in my room in isolation, it's as if there's too much pressure, too much focus on me.
hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing that we see for me, for every person, this works differently. I always consider that some people are watching this, maybe they are curious because they want to see what you're working on, what I'm writing about, etc. But probably many people are saying, hey, I want to write my book too, right? So
Hmm.
hopefully they get inspired. And rather than try to find what's the formula, maybe they need to follow that same path. Well, for you, it's the iPad in a cafe. Well, for
Yeah.
other people, could be something different.
Yeah, and it's funny how this indeed relates to the idea of the unprofessionalism as I'm looking at it, where we have the desire to be professional, meaning to do it as we are supposed to do it. Um, and how do we know that how we are supposed to? It's kind of, it has been told, and that's the image that we see in the movies, we read in the books, we hear from others. Oh, in order to write, to be a professional writer, this is how you do. Whereas in reality, it's our intention that makes us a professional writer. And then we need to find out
Mhm.
what works for us. And I think the same is true for leadership, or any of the modern professions. Um, that we have to
Definitely.
find.
And that's why I was thinking that at some point I used to include the word writer, and many years ago I replaced it by author first because it's more comprehensive. But
Mhm.
writer comes with this what's the expectation of being a professional writer be? An author, I mean, if you create a piece of crap, you're authoring something, right? If you plant and a tree grows, you're the author of that plant growing. So
Hmm.
I think that author liberates us from its brother, but also you don't just write. A writer is, you can be an author of, I mean, a tool, a workshop, or a conversation.
I have not looked at it like that. Yeah, thank you. And then some are very carrying the title of published author very proudly
Yeah.
to make the distinction. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, but when you publish your podcast summaries on LinkedIn, you're a published author because you're no,
Yay!
but
Why am I
or if
writing
you
this
publish
book?
on Substack. No, what I'm
Yeah,
saying is that
yeah,
we still feel about going back to your title and your book that we keep booking. What's the expectation? What's
yeah,
the category versus
yes,
the multiple expressions?
yeah. And I would love your perspective on something for the book, if I may. Because I realized that in our last call, I just came out of my rabbit hole of, okay, what does profession mean?
Uh-huh.
Where's all of this coming from? And then I got stuck on the generational divide. That nowadays there's the digital natives that have more access to information than their parents' generation. So for the first time in history, almost, I think the only other time was when the printing press was invented. The younger generation has access to more knowledge than the older one. And then I thought that the main problem with professionalism and breaking free from professionalism is the old ones, air quotes, who hold on to the power
Hmm.
because they are making the rules. Okay, if you
Hmm.
want to work for me, you better dress this way. This is how you write your emails. This is how you do the job. So all this micromanagement. And the youngsters come in and say, yeah, but with all the information that I get from AI and from the internet, I want to do it differently. So there's a clash. And somehow something didn't sit right to be so stereotypical between of generations
Hmm. Yeah.
because they are old ones, and I would almost include myself because I'm not a digital native, who are very tech savvy and who embrace it. And they're young ones, they're Gen X people um, who do not feel comfortable with AI and with technology.
Hmm.
So, long story short, the way how I solved it, or what I now think, is that it's not um, about the generation, but about our response to VUCA, volatility, uncertainty,
Hmm.
um, where which happened about so VUCA entered the professional the business world in the 2000s or
Hmm.
2010s with digitalization and all of that. And I have the impression that there were two different responses to that. There were those who went like, "Oh my God, that's too uncertain, that's scary. We have to hold on to what we have. We have to create processes. We have to um, define exactly how work has to be." And there were others who said, "Oh, wow, this is an opportunity. What happens if we invite chaos?"
Hmm.
Meaning collaboration, maybe distributed power. So my hypothesis or my curiosity is whether we can distinguish between those who hold on to this toxic professionalism and those who could not adjust to VUCA and others who embraced VUCA that were then leaning into this, I call it unprofessional pioneer and inviting collaboration, innovation, all of that.
Hmm.
Check. Does this make sense?
Yes and no. So it makes sense, like maybe using a different angle than the generational one.
Hmm.
Like I remember when people were, I mean, I worked before doing this in marketing, and people were millennials this, millennials that, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't really a generational thing. It was, I say, wait until millennials, especially in the US, get some debt, right? When they buy their first car or house or they get children, and then they start seeing the world completely different. So what I'm seeing, they are still a different generation. They're more digital, but the circumstances affect how they see the world. When you have full freedom, then but then you grow up a little bit in responsibilities or debt. As an example, now here debt is report, and then their views of the world change dramatically.
Hmm.
So it's positional. And the same happens at work, which I think kind of links to this book approach, in which, yeah, it's people are freer from the professionalism standard expectations when you're starting, but when you start enjoying the benefits of that power thing, then you might not agree with that, regardless of your age.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So you can be 50, 40, whatever, and then you're in a situation that you don't buy into that stuff, you don't have the title, and your work is not your identity, and then you're freer from that expectations. But there are younger people that they progress really quickly in their career, and then when they start getting their corner office and perks and blah blah blah, then probably they're going to buy into
Mm.
the expectations because they become part of that club.
Mm.
So like the groups always come with negativity, but also have pros for perks for certain people. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yes. And I wonder, isn't there a difference whether regarding our motivators? Are we motivated by anxiety and scarcity, or are we motivated um, by curiosity um, and abundance?
I love a lot that angle for what you're saying, because in the end, regardless of what happens, Bucano, older, younger, what I mentioned, position, like in your career, whatever, is that when you feel that there's few of them, so I want to belong because I don't want to miss out. I don't want to be rejected from that club of
Hmm.
professionals. But when you work into there are many possibilities. So maybe being unprofessional means accepting that there are many ways of being professional
Yes,
versus the other one, you need to fit in with a particular standard.
absolutely. And that's a direction where I'm leading towards. And in order to have this unprofessional worldview, you have to see the opportunities and the abundance. And you cannot when you're coming um, from this world of scarcity. And I have the impression that the digitalization and AI era do play a massive role in that because
Definitely.
in a way, because it disrupts the professionalism that it you cannot be a micromanager in a world where your team is distributed and is using AI.
Mhm.
It just doesn't work anymore because micromanagement is based on the premise that you can control what other people are doing and that you have almost the monopoly on the information and the knowledge. So the moment that this premise breaks, micromanagement doesn't work anymore. And micromanagement for me is almost like the incarnation of the toxic professionalism.
Mhm. I was thinking of going back to Buka, the U stands for uncertainty,
Hmm.
right? And so if you cross that with scarcity abundance mindset, is that in an uncertain, people who work operate under the scarcity mindset are going to worry about what they can lose. So it's uncertain, I'm going to keep this, while the other people say, well, maybe the future is better, so I lose something,
Mm,
but I win, you know.
yes,
And I
yes.
think that's basically the past and future I'm exploring that when it comes to conversational depth in my book, that the different thing, but I think the future orientation and past orientation has a lot to do because the people that are more into protecting an old model,
Yeah,
they are stuck into a past orientation versus other people that are more future orientation. They look, okay, what if the future is better? You know?
yeah, exactly. And I think that this works better for my context than the generational divide. It's more the mindset and how we react towards an uncertain world that we cannot control by definition. Thank you. Thank you. It was
Great
helpful
conversation.
to work.
No, it's good to change lenses, right? To see like
Yeah.
I was thinking different when you talk about micromanagement. I think micromanagement never works, but the illusion associated to it works. So the person who is micromanagement think that they are in control.
Yes.
So I don't know if they're gonna go away. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there are many leaders that are using AI to basically solve the questions and get the answers they don't know. And so they are protecting themselves to open up to other people and say, hey, I don't know. So they are using it to, I'm going to find everything and then
Mm.
show that I'm. So I think in terms of scarcity, being an expert or being perceived as an expert connects a lot with being professional. So
Yes.
professionalism is you need to know everything. You need to have all the answers.
Yeah. And that's an
Because it operates.
old concept because nowadays AI has all the answers. So it cannot be about that because AI is not professional, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Um,
then it comes to scarcity. It feels that there can only be one smart person. So either you're the smartest or you're not, versus no, I'm smarter at this, you're smarter at that.
yeah.
And
Yeah. And it's a collective. It feels like the old professionalism is about the individual expert.
mhm,
And what I understand by unprofessionalism or the new professionalism is that it's the collective expertise. So it's not only
yeah.
hold by one person, but it's a group of people. Um, yeah. And this only works if they have the conversations that matter.
Hmm. And the challenge, I don't know if you're going to get that far on the book or not, maybe for book two, but how you bring those worlds together, right? Because in the end, you're going to have both people that need to coexist.
Yes. Um, and I think that's so I have finished this first part on the art of winging it. So what are the skills that we actually need? If it's not expertise, but experimentation, what are the skills that we really need nowadays instead of this
Mhm.
outdated professionalism? Um, and then in the next part, no, in the final part of the book, I would like to speak about being unprofessional in a professional world.
Being professional in an
Being,
unprofessional world or
no, the
being
other way,
unprofessional in a
being
professional.
unprofessional in the professional
Ah,
world.
okay.
Because as a matter of fact, when we look around us, all these corporates still operate with these outdated expectations of professionalism. So how can we actually be unprofessional? So how can we be more human? How can we put down our mask? How can we be more collaborative? Um, admitting that we don't know, while this other world is still continuing to exist. Um, yeah, but
And I ask
that's
something
part
that,
three. Hmm? Yes.
okay, I get, so I tend to get into brainstorming mode, and so I don't want to throw stuff and derail you. You know that most books have, I'm thinking maybe mine should, I don't know, have the how to get started or whatever. So in the end, like, okay, you read all this shit that what,
And now
what
what?
I'm gonna, yeah, now what, right? It's like I always say, like growth mindset. Oh, of course, everyone agrees, but then it's more like a, yeah, give me the pill. But imagine. both ways. So you can talk to people who embrace your unprofessionalism or want to, so
Hmm.
aspirationally, or are already closer to your principles, how to deal in a world that's evolving, that's not there,
Hmm.
but also talk to the people that feel left behind, that they are professionals. Some are never going to, but maybe there are people that are there because no one is helping them rethink. They're there because they see how do I jump out of here, right?
Yeah.
So they get stuck and tell them that the world is getting unprofessional. So
Yeah.
how they switch. So it's a
Yeah. And that's a very good point. And I think it's a slippery slope because I think it has a lot to do with fear. It
Mhm.
has a lot to do with the inner work.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't want to go into the therapy way. I think there are many books who do write about the inner journey, the inner work, but maybe then I can refer to it. Because
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, and then I want to hear about your book, um, it's about a crossroad where either you go down the professional way and you have the impression that um, you're constantly fighting imposter syndrome because you will never know enough, especially not in an AI era. Hence, you have constantly to defend yourself. Hence, you can
Mhm.
never be yourself. Hence, it leads directly into isolation and, in the worst case scenario, into burnout. And the only
Mm.
way out, I think, is um, doing the self work, the inner work, to lean into this fear of admitting that we don't know, and showing a human side that will then also help us to connect to people because we cannot connect to masks. So I think
Mhm.
it's either isolation and loneliness or it's humanness and connectedness. And I think it's very difficult to be, especially in our polarized world where it goes so fast. I think it will be more and more difficult to be somewhere in between.
Cool. I'm always thinking like baby steps. So in the work I do with executive leaders, CEOs, whatever, they are all the information they get from books, videos, their human resources. You need to be more vulnerable. And instead of intellectually, they get it, but emotionally, they can't. And they tend to shut down. So
Hmm.
sometimes, because the expectations are so far away from where they are, that they feel I'm never
Hmm.
going to be able to make the switch. They feel
Hmm.
like if you're talking to someone who's 3 decades behind in terms of technology adoption, so they feel instead Eh, but sometimes the language, so removing all those vulnerability, you need to do it, that
Hmm.
it's more okay. Let's get started and moving them from one place to another
Hmm.
without necessarily so focus on the how we go from here to here, then from there, and not
Yeah.
hey, you need to
Yeah.
run a marathon. So that's one of them.
Yes.
But
Good one. Good one.
for me, has worked a lot because they get into the everything feels like oh, I need to do this, I need to. They see the ideal model that many
Mm.
books like see with radical candor, growth
Yeah.
mindset. So they propose and if you're there, oh, well, then people shut down versus
True.
how
True.
can I
What's the
improve?
first thing I can do? Yeah. I love
Because
that.
those two people are going to be involved. So if you want to be unprofessional and your boss is, like there's need to be at least some
Yeah. And
shared progress.
yeah, I love that. Yes. And I think it all starts with a how are you really?
Hmm,
And pause. Start to ask and start to listen. I think that's the very first step.
yeah.
Check. I want
But
to hear
but I
about
like
your
how it's taking shape and stuff.
mm.
So it's kind of a the questions one asks about what you were creating are better than the you know what I mean. So I think
Yes.
you challenging your own that filter. Are you going through generation? Are you going through book? Are you going through a scarcity? What that kind of stuff?
Hmm.
It's really great. Like people usually buy into the first idea, come to, and then they get into that and they get stuck. So
Yeah, and it's
that's a good for you. I really love it.
thank you. Thank you. And it was really helpful that last time, 2 weeks ago, you said that, okay, it's part of the process to be messy, and just embracing
Mhm.
it, because I realized that
Yeah.
sometimes I sit there and I have this thought and I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. And then I write it down and then it's gone. And then I try to catch it. So I'm constantly in this debate with myself and trying to catch my thoughts. Um, and yeah, double checking whether it makes sense what I think. Um, yeah. And you, I have the impression I took so much time.
Okay, we're chatting. So, I don't track time. That's like no, I always joke about the we need to focus more when it comes to facilitating conversation more on fair participation than on equal participation. Also, it's
Mm,
kind of it's not about quantity, it's about make sure that the big ideas are not lost. And sometimes we get stuck into that. But well, whatever.
and also, yeah, some people just need more words to express what they have to say, and others need fewer words.
Yeah. But also there are moments that people need to have more protagonism, sort of, and so it's kind of a
Yeah.
so definitely. So no, I love it. I think it helps me reflect on the process. I think that we all get lost differently, but to your point, accepting it. So when we fight back and we're looking for a more rigid, so for me, sometimes in a hour I make I don't know how much progress, and then 1 week I do it. I say I'm not writing, and then I say, well, but I don't write with words. I write here, right? My
Mm, yes. Yeah. Do you, so you don't have a daily routine for writing or a weekly routine?
no, I'm no Hemingway. No. No, I think I mean, once I think it works differently. At some point, I work better with deadlines than with routines.
Mm,
But also, I have other stuff to take care of, or client work, or journey, whatever I need. So I don't want to feel guilty that oh, I haven't done whatever, right?
yeah.
Because I know that sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, I can sit like 2, 3 hours, regardless of the hour, and make progress. So it's like a there are moments that I'm doing nothing, not even at work. So not the book, not my. There are days that for everyone should feel like this guy's doing that. He's not working, right? And
Yeah.
then there are others that I can do what other people like would take maybe a month. I do in 2 hours.
Yeah.
I design 2 workshops. I create a tool from scratch. I design it and I write a chapter of the book and boom, all in 2 hours. And
Because you
it's not
took
that I
all
have a
the time
super, that's how I
before.
work. But then
Yeah.
there's another day that people are churning and I'm like, I'm gonna have another espresso, I'm gonna go for a walk and and yeah,
Yeah, and I think these are the moments where the real work happens, right? Where you
yeah,
unconsciously crunch all the ideas, and then when you sit down, you can do it in 2 hours. You wouldn't have been able to do it without this day of air quotes, um,
yeah. Of
wasted
wasting
time.
your time, right?
Yeah.
You're watching TV, you're reading silly things, you're like you're checking the news. Like
And that's what I love, how our brain works, is that this law of attraction, that the moment we prime our own brain on the topic because we're writing a book on a specific topic, and then everything we see and everything we hear, somehow, at least that's for me, in my brain, I see it through the lens of unprofessionalism. And every time that I listen to a podcast to a very different conversation, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What does it tell me about the model of the world that I'm currently creating? And I can
Mhm.
imagine that for you it's similar. Even when you watch a Netflix series, suddenly you see, oh, what are the conversations that they didn't have? How did this
Yeah,
how did this happen? So I think everything we do suddenly becomes part of this research.
it does. And even if what you're consuming on Netflix, the other day I was watching like 2 episodes of a silly series just to, because my brain saying yeah, I need to boom. I'm always making lots of decisions, creating a lot of stuff, so your brain gets exhausted. And I did that, and I say, well, maybe tonight is I watch this, spend some time with my wife, go to bed, and that's about it. But then I finish, I turn off the TV, I watch the computer, and then I was like, oh my God, what's going on? So
Yeah. It is the relaxation, maybe, that then helps the ideas to flow.
it is, it is. That's why sometimes, I mean, I think that procrastination is not good when people are saying, but also forcing ourselves to do something is not good either, right? Because
Mm,
it's counterintuitive. Sometimes procrastination is a sign of maybe you don't really want to do something, or maybe you're not ready, or there are things that we need to. It's not that we're guilty, we're not doing stuff, no,
yeah.
this mandate
Yeah.
of work. But all in, so what I try to say is, okay, if I see since I started a month or so ago, have I made progress with the book? I mean, and say, well, yeah, I have a lot. So I have a name, a title. I really crafted like as an exercise. If I were to publish it, what would I put on Amazon? What would be the back cover? So I did that not because it is, but because it helps me like start seeing
Mm,
the book as it's getting there, and also the pieces make sense, right?
yeah.
If I publish it and I don't have a book where people think, oh, this is interesting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
in the end, many people buy books and never open them. So
That is also very true. Which color will your book be?
I don't know. I was thinking orange. I don't know. So I'm all the folders where I'm printing the outlines or the draft, whatever, I'm using different orange folders. So maybe that's
Oh,
the,
but then
I
you
don't know.
need a different wall paint
I don't know.
because otherwise you won't see your book.
No, I don't know. Yeah, probably. I used to have one that was ready in my previous home, but I was thinking that, for example, for me to feel the pressure that I'm making, so next time I'm gonna, for next week, I have a couple of workshops, and I'm gonna have the one of my books, actual books, with a fake cover with
Mhm.
a question mark on it, because people are
Nice.
gonna start asking, and I want me to start feeling that it's there somewhere. It's still a question mark.
Great.
And then at some point, maybe I'm gonna put the name on it. Like I'm gonna create my own fake cover. I'm gonna
Yeah,
put the name. So I
I
play
like that.
around with it as well.
I like that. And I would be very curious, if you're open to share. What are your hopes or the expectations and hopes are the wrong words, but what would be helpful as so you have published now one chapter, one draft chapter of your book on Substack,
Yeah.
and shared it on LinkedIn, and I can imagine you got lots of views. What would be helpful for you to get, or what were you hoping to get? Or maybe you hope that everyone says, "Oh, that's amazing."
I love people to laugh my wife. No, to be honest, I had one more than expectation. I had something I was hoping it wouldn't happen, and so far it hasn't happened, which is not because of the vulnerability. Everyone say, "Oh, wow, brave." I say, "Okay, I'm." For me, it feels like natural doing that, so I don't feel that I'm doing something really bad. I'm not jumping from a tall building, but a skyscraper. The thing is, I want to make sure that there's a lot of people that you write something and then people immediately have their but you need to do this. They start like giving feedback without you asking them, and not
Mhm.
feedback in the term of inspiration, but basically try to tell you what you should do.
Yeah,
Like that's
yeah.
not feedback, but that didn't happen. And I got a lot of people that actually not only they wrote on LinkedIn, on Substack, on the post and blah blah, but also a lot wrote directly to me. Well, it was really rewarding because
Mm,
it was not just people saying, "Oh, great, cool," but it was more like a "Thank you for doing this." How it resonated for them, both the
mm,
act and the content, and that's
mm,
interesting, right? Because what I like is not for people to say, "Great for doing this," but how it resonated with their own experience. Maybe they are doing something and they don't have or the courage, or they don't have, maybe it's not professional to publish something that's not ready, not like a, and they felt encouraged, but oh, maybe I can do
mm,
that too. So that was really rewarding, was part of the purpose. For me, it felt like, oh, now I crossed the line. So it's like there's no way
no
back,
back.
right? So
Yes.
people are not say, hey, you cannot say, hey, I can do whatever, right? But you feel like, well, now you need to give more. And people asking me, that was really a lot of people saying this resonates with my reality, the conversational depth, one, two, whatever. But a lot of people saying, I want to read the next chapter. What's the solution? How it was, yeah, sure. So And that was no, really, it felt like, when you're
Yeah,
watching it and you want to see what happens next. And that
yeah,
was really rewarding.
yeah.
But also, it's not that we need validation, but we need certain clarity to see that you're kind of in the right track, right?
And I
If you're
think it
lost
is,
and
yeah,
you shout, you want to hear some voices getting back to you.
yes. And I think it is a certain validation, validation of the concept and not of your ego, right? So you want to see, okay, does it resonate? Am I on the right track?
Mhm,
Yeah, I can see that. Um, and yeah, what I found beautiful in the article that you shared was that immediately my brain would screen my past conversations or
mhm,
situations where these different types of depth did apply.
mhm.
So that was great. So it really resonated. I'm like, oh yeah, this totally makes sense. I can see how this has happened in my own life, and I could observe it in those around me.
Mhm.
Um, and to come back to what you said about just the impact of the posting, I realized over the past 2 weeks, I posted some of the ideas, or at least the curiosities around my book. I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
this is what I'm thinking of. Um,
Yeah.
trusting the gut or trusting the data. This was my last one. It looks so
Yeah.
professional that you have all the data, right? And
Yeah.
okay, we came to this decision because of all the analysis. It looks super professional, but we have so much data that we cannot just purely rely on that. So it's more of a gut. But is it considered professional? Anyway, long story short, what I appreciated most were the comments below and everyone adding book recommendations, case studies, ideas
Mhm.
that really made
Mhm.
me think further and deeper about the topic. Um, yeah, and I was thinking that
That's
it might
awesome.
also happen to you in your chapter. Um,
It
posting.
did, and one person, for example, shared like a tool that you can use to review a manuscript with early readers. I used one in the past, and this is a new one. So I said, well, maybe in, my first reaction was, well, I need to compare them. And I was saying, no, no, let's go for the new one. I don't know how it works, but so it's more like a tribute to the person that recommended, and
Yeah,
also for me to say, I'm going to use something different. So the experience is going to be different.
yeah, great.
So
I'm
it's kind of fun.
curious. Okay, and now it's official.
I can send you the link, but it's one of these tools that people read and they can make comments,
Yeah.
but also you can track when people skip or skim certain areas because they're not interested, so you can see the the
Oh,
the interested and stuff. And of course, in my case, I use a different tool, but I provide people with feedback. They kind of creating some kind of clear rules of engagement. So don't rewrite stuff. So
you
don't
mentioned
be
that
my
last time.
editor unless you want them, no, right? But some
Yeah.
people get into the editing text and you want like
Yeah,
do
no,
you
don't
want
do that.
no
Don't
so
do that. You're
and
not the
don't think
author.
of, for example, don't think in right or wrong. No, I love this. Like when people say I love this, okay, great. So what? Thank you, but it's not. And this is bad. Well, so like maybe ask questions. So for me, it was more about consistency, clarity, like
Yeah.
too many examples, too many days, to like finding that
Mm,
balance. And this tool
yeah.
helps you see if people are maybe like certain areas they spend a lot of time and others, boom, they just skim them.
Very interesting. Don't we
Mhm.
love technology?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Gustavo.
Thank you. You mentioned that you wrote some learnings or insights. You didn't share those, that this
Um,
structured.
oh yeah. Let me. Um, and I think I mentioned all of them somehow. That. Oh, I deleted so many pages after our call. I just
Yeah.
and it felt so first I put them on a different document, like okay, maybe for later, but it just felt so relieving to delete them. Um, and then yeah, to test ideas on LinkedIn. Just okay, write a short snippet out of it. That works. Um, one learning was also I cannot stick to a daily writing routine. It's not me.
Cannot.
No, I cannot just. Yes, as soon as I sit in a cafe and I get my thing out, my iPad out, yes, but the thing. Um, and I learned that I have to stay away from trying now to build the perfect bridges between the chapters. I was
Hmm.
beating myself up for writing a couple of long blog posts, so to speak, and then thinking, oh, how do I make the transition? And then I realized all of that is for later. I'm still in the just download and write, get the words out stage.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good thing about the we we think of books like a novel that you end somewhere and then you reconnect with the audience where they left. But business books in particular, people read them. Non-fiction books, people read them like in any order, right? So we,
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's something that I also learned from facilitation and training is it's not enough to just say it once. So we do need to sound like a broken record.
Hmm.
But then to get the balance right between, okay, don't treat your readers like stupid people that they
Yeah,
don't remember. But also, yeah. Yeah.
that's a good one. Yeah, fantastic.
What
So
are
you're
you?
having fun, right?
Yes, yes, and pain, but more fun than pain. Yes.
That's good. That's good. No, it's fun. It's fun. Especially
Good.
when we are excited, that's fun. No? When it feels that it's not maybe because we are writing the wrong book and we need to.
Oh yes, I had a conversation with Thomas Lanthaler, who's finishing his second book at the moment, and we discussed that was another learning that I had this phase where I would do more research and go into the nitty-gritty of understanding and explaining, and suddenly I
Hmm.
procrastinated writing. And then I was reading other people's book and realized that I get most excited when they're sharing their stories
Hmm.
because it's real. They're writing a book for themselves.
Yeah,
And then I realized that the moment I speak about my stories and my experience when I write the book for myself, then I'm getting really excited and really inspired. So I want to keep that in mind.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. So what's the next experiment that we have? Do you have something in mind that you're gonna do?
I wonder whether I'm brave enough to post a chapter. On the other hand, I don't want to fall into the trap and now try to make a chapter perfect before moving on. My next challenge is the structure of part two.
Hmm.
So, what is the real? Okay, now we know everything that's not working. So, how do we jump into? So, now what is the beautiful future, and then how do we get there?
Hmm.
Probably,
Yeah.
or maybe
How
combined.
many parts are you gonna have in the book?
Three, at
What if you
least.
sold part three first?
Mm,
A challenge. So think of the outline and they say, well, to get it from here to here, what's the bridge?
that's a very good point.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it might also be more fun to write the end first.
But also
Yeah,
the last part is always the most exciting because you are near completion, right? So you feel
that's
like
true. That's true. And then I add some some empty pages in the middle. Okay, here is for you to take your notes.
it's like having a sandwich, but you don't have any feelings. Like it's just
Yeah, the real BS sandwich.
no, really. But today I wrote the back cover text and the Amazon stuff, and it really feels like what a. Then you start like prioritizing because you need to be sure to the point where are the
Mm,
real ideas and what are the things that oh,
yeah,
cut.
yeah. So what is your next challenge or
I
experiment?
don't know. I was thinking like any ideas, any suggestions. Like I feel that publishing another chapter would be that the easy thing, but then it would be like, what's the surprising factor,
Hmm.
Like
So is it the model then to
I don't know if
really?
it's the model. I don't know if it's the maybe the name with some. I'm hooked. Maybe I changed, but I'm hooked with the name. But then I have two or three subtitles, and maybe having people to vote, or maybe I don't know,
Mm,
or maybe start inviting people to, hey, who want to be the early readers? Even there's no manuscript, but just to start like building that
yeah,
kind of a thing, huh?
good. Are you
Or maybe a
still
survey, some kind of a
are you still playing
interesting
with the idea
survey.
of the podcast?
Uh-huh.
Are you still playing the idea of the podcast?
Yeah, yeah, I have to. Yeah. But I'm also in the midst maybe I can combine the podcast with that, with a, we're doing with my associates across the world, like a survey on culture, which is not necessarily directly linked to the book. So it's kind of another extra layer of work. So
Mm, maybe finding the combination.
yeah, maybe the podcast could be, but the point of the surveys are going to be very confidential because people talk about the shit that's happening in their own company. So they're not going to be willing to be recorded. Senior executives, that. So.
Yeah, it's true.
But maybe, I don't know, could be pitching and say, hey, you have something to share that you like to be quoted in the book, or you think you can add to the story,
Mm,
like, and then interview people randomly, or not randomly, but
yeah,
with some filters, and then that could be the next move. And so
yeah,
people need to pitch to, I have something that's going to add to your book, and then it becomes more of a
yeah. That's what
interesting
I'm
conversation.
so I will hopefully in the next 2 weeks publish a landing page, which is basically just a typewriter, a thought writer, for people
Uh-huh.
to share their stories related to unprofessionalism,
Yeah,
and then for me to cover some to get some some case studies, and then also maybe find people that I can then interview about it, and this would be my
perfect.
filter. Let's see how this works. That's an
That's
experiment.
good.
Yeah,
So something like that. I'm inviting people to kind of add to the content is something that I'm kind of inclined to.
yeah. And I think there's so many stories out there,
But
conversation depth.
being mindful that I don't like, because you're gonna fall in love with every story, and then it doesn't like how you curate. That's the,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Boundaries.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Thank you, Gustavo.
Thank you for making this happen. That was
Yeah.
great.
Back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, of course.
See you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.
Bye.